In this video, we'll take a look at export options with presets. And what it is useful for is if you have a photo shoot and you need a certain amount of images exported as a JPEG, also as a TIFF, also as a TIFF with different settings, and so on and so on. And you don't want to repeat the process 3 or 4 or 5 times. You just want to select the actual images and have them go all into their appropriate folders with their appropriate settings for export. And there's a lot of images here. So of course, the first thing you'll do is you will mark the best ones and you will call them out. So I've done that already. So I have here my 2-star images. So these are the images that I would have gone into develop with, and I did not create a collection for this case, but I could have, and I processed them. So this is an image that looked like before and after kind of thing. So they were all processed, they are all done, and I'm going to export them into different file sizes, into different file types, and so on. So I'm going to select all, Command A or Control A. You can go back to library, but you don't have to. Click on File menu, Export, or Shift Command E. And here we are in the export module. So for this to work correctly, I need to create the presets first. As you can see, under user presets, I have no user presets. So this is where they're going to go. So think it through and figure out where things needs to go before you start this process. So I need some images to go into my Dropbox, and inside the Dropbox, I will have a subfolder called social media. And those images will be for my Instagram and Facebook and such. So this first preset is going to be for my social media. So first thing I need to do is figure out where I'm going to put them. Export location. Export location. I'm going to choose a specific folder, and I'm going to choose that specific folder. The specific folder is going to be my Dropbox. Inside the Dropbox, I'm going to create a folder called social media. You could choose to rename them, but I'm not going to rename them. I'm going to skip it. It's not a video file. Skip that as well. But file type. Okay, so for Instagram, I need to have a JPEG file. I usually compress it to about 70 or so. 70 or 80 is fine. The color space should be sRGB, as we learned in previous lessons. And I'm going to resize these images, and I'm going to resize these images on their long dimension. The reason being is that I have some images that are horizontal and other images that are vertical. So I'm going to change this option to long edge. So no matter if it's vertical or horizontal, it's the long edge. And the long edge, I do them a little bit bigger than what is needed for social media. Social media for Instagram needs 1080 on the width. But I'm just going to make them 1500 just to be safe, but I could have done 1080 as well. Instagram and Facebook is going to resize it for you anyhow. So the resolution is going to be 72, that is screen resolution. Output sharpening is going to be not for glossy paper, but for screen. And we can leave that on standard. And then as far as what is going to be added to the file, as far as metadata goes, I just want them to see my copyright information and contact information only. I don't need to let them see everything else, but we do have choices to allow everything else, such as camera settings and so on. And because it's for social media, I might put a watermark just with my handle name. It's not to say that someone can't retouch it. They absolutely can, but I'll go ahead and add a watermark. So I'll choose edit watermark because I don't have one. But if you do create one, then you can just reuse it all the time. So here it is, copyright, and I'll just put, you can either put your name or your company name or something like that. I'll just leave it as copyright, and I'll usually will add the year too. Okay, so it's just going to be a small little copyright at the bottom, And I actually make it fairly small just because it looks a little bit less obnoxious, and I'm going to turn off the shadow, but you can have some drop shadows so you can explore this panel on your own. And I'm going to move it slightly just off the edge. So it's going to look something like that. And I'm going to save that as a preset. Save current setting as a preset. And I'll just call it Option G for copyright, or Alt 0169 on PC. And I'll put down 2020 NC for my initials. I just know, so that way I know what this is. Create, done. So in the future, if I want to use this copyright watermark again, I can just select it from this menu, and you can create as many watermarks as you like. This is just one. Okay. So then once this whole process is done, yes, I want the computer to show it to me in my Finder when it's done. Okay, so all my settings are preset. This is ready to go to be saved as a preset. So I'm going to go ahead and choose Add. And I'm going to call this social media. Create. Okay, that's one. I'm going to create another one as a TIFF file for printing, let's say 8x10s. Okay, so the next preset is going to be for printing 4x6 or 8x10 or whatever you choose. So I'm going to change the specific folder from Dropbox to desktop, choose the desktop. And then here I'm going to create a subfolder on the desktop for printing. Now, this folder for printing is going to be on your desktop, and you better not move it, because if you move it, then Lightroom is not going to know where to save these images from this preset. So you can empty out this folder later, but you cannot move it somewhere else or rename it, because Lightroom is not going to know where it is. So there's for printing. Again, I'm going to skip the renaming. I'm just going to use the name of the actual file, because I am pretty good about renaming my files when I import them. So I don't need to rename them again. So I'm going to close that. So this is going to be for printing, and this for printing is going to be a TIFF file. And let's say it's going to be in ProPhoto RGB, let's say. And let's say this one is going to be a fine art print, so it's going to be in ProPhoto RGB, and it's going to be 16-bit. It's going to be quite large. And then I'm going to resize it on the long edge for 10 inches. Of course, this could be bigger. This is just an example. Whoops. So once you change the inches, make sure you change the size. And it's going to be printed at 240, or sometimes you may choose to print it at 300, depending what the lab needs or what your printer is capable of. And I'm going to do sharpening 4. If this is going to be, I usually print on some kind of a paper that has a sheen on it, so I will choose glossy. But if you print on fine art papers that are rag, choose matte for this preset, and you may have to create 2 presets, one for matte, one for glossy. And its copyright is just the copyright contact info, definitely no watermark. Okay, so this is going to be another preset. I'm going to call this one TIFF ProPhoto 16-bit, and it's going to be 10 inches long. Create. And now we're also going to create another JPEG file for printing, but it's going to be a JPEG, because it's going to go to non-professional lab. So we're going to change that to JPEG, and it's going to be sRGB maybe, and I'll crank up the quality to 100. And on the long edge, I still want it to 10 inches. And this resolution will change to 300, because usually non-professional labs print at 300. And everything else is the same. It's going to be a glossy print. Copyright is not, is just a copyright, no other camera information. and that's going to be another preset. So we're going to call this one JPEG. sRGB, 10 inches long. And I don't need to put 16-bit or 18 or 16-bit or 8-bit because sRGB does not support 16-bit. So that is good. Create. And so here we have the 3 presets. So you have to create them ahead of time, but you only need to create them once. So now, remember, I had all of those images selected of Zoe, and I need multiple types of files going into these multiple type of folders. So I'm going to go ahead and check these little boxes. Okay. I want all 3 versions of all 3 images. And here it's going to tell me that I have multiple presets. Don't pay attention to this little guy. That's something. Multiple presets selected, and there are 3 presets. And if you want to learn more about it, you can click on this link. So I'm going to go ahead, and now it says batch export. Batch export. It is telling me which folders it's going to choose. So here it is. It's choosing the destination folder for the desktop for the TIFF. It's choosing the Dropbox folder for the social media, and desktop again for the JPEG. Now, if you needed to change these, you could change them at this point, but I have already done it beforehand, so I don't need to change them here. Export. And so you'll notice that I have 3 operations going, and off they go. Okay, so now we are done. And as you can see, it opened up 2 locations. Here is my Dropbox, and here are the images for my social media. So this is my Dropbox, and inside here I have a folder called social media. There it is, social media. And here are the images with the watermark. Notice there's the watermark. And there are the images, and the other folder is desktop for printing. And notice I have JPEG files and TIFF files. Now, you could have created another subfolder inside for printing, one for TIFFs, one for JPEGs. So that way it would have separated them. JPEGs will be in JPEGs and TIFFs will be in TIFFs. I did not do that, but you could. That's just under the destination. So this is a very helpful workflow for exporting multiple files into multiple folders into multiple file types.